Hi everyone, we're back with another Series 10 team, this time starring another one of my favorites, Gengar. Game Freak hasn't really been that kind to Gengar recently. They took away its Mega Form and its access to Levitate, which gives it a ground weakness, but I think it still has a very real niche in the metagame. It's not going to be quite as flashy as Dragonite or Blaziken were in the previous videos where they picked up pretty much all the kills, but its speed combined with its ghost typing, giving it fake out immunity, just makes it amazing at supporting hyper-aggressive teams with a fast non-prankster taunt and Icy Wind. On top of that, Ghost and Poison Stab coming off of its very powerful base 130 special attack can be great when things like Xerneas and Calyrex are two of the biggest metagame threats, especially when we have a Focus Sash on it to allow it to take an Astral Barrage or a Geomancy sped up Xerneas attack, and just fire back, picking up the Yoko on Calyrex. So for the rest of the team, I said this Gengar set works well with Hyper Offense, and Kyogre definitely suits that. We're running Mystic Water over the, I guess, more meta Choice Scarf these days, because all the various speed control options on this team pretty much allow us to be greedy and get that extra power. We are still running a Tib in Nature that allows us to hit 149 speed, which means we outspeed Calyrex with just one stage of speed control in either direction. This is great when we have both Icy Wind and Electro Web in addition to our regular Tailwind from Tornogre. Speaking of Tornadus, it has a very standard set with the Wakan Berry for Regieleki and Rain Dance, so we can manually win Weather Wars a lot more easily. Sarina is a wide lens set, and this is just because I hate missing. It's probably not optimal. If you're brave, you can swap in an Assault Vest and go for U-turn to get pivoting potential. It has just enough bulk to take a +1 Behemoth Blade from Zacian. Incineroar is our same set from previous videos with higher than normal speed and enough bulk to take a neutral CC from Zacian. Finally, we round out the team with a Magnet Regieleki rocking Thunder to take advantage of that rain. It's max speed, and once again has just enough bulk for a +1 B-Blade from Zacian. So that dog does define a lot of our calcs, but otherwise just the bulk is nice. That wraps up the team. Let's see Gengar do some work. As before, these videos are commentated after the fact, so I could pick the best ones to showcase what Gengar can do. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so our first game is a Zacian Rain team. This concept has actually won a pretty large tournament recently. I believe that was Pelipper instead of Politoed, but Politoed is still a fantastic support Pokemon, and that Rain, still helps Zacian resist its fire-type counters very well. So in this game, we want speed control, but Landorus and Double Fake Out really scare Regieleki, so that makes it a fantastic game for Gengar's Icy Wind support. At first, I'd planned on bringing Incineroar to this game. It's just kind of a standard really great bring against Zacian with Intimidate and Fire-type coverage, but I ultimately settle on Tornadus for that spot, and that's because both Regieleki and Zacian outspeed me. In the back, we obviously bring Kyogre and then Sarina to handle Rillaboom. Honestly, you could make a case for Incineroar being used here too, but Politoed plus Landorus really just pushed me away from that decision. It looks like we made our pick after our opponent, so we can hop right into this game. Alright, so let's see what their lead is. Regieleki and Zacian. That is about as hyper-aggressive as you can physically get here. But we've got a reasonably decent lead for that too with Torn and Gengar. We do have this Wakan Berry here to allow us to live a hit from Regieleki. But with that said, Gengar is outsped by both, and we could be doubled into and just lose this turn. So I don't think protecting with Tornadus is the play. Instead, we can match our opponent's hyper offense and go for a Tailwind plus Icy Wind. Guarantee that we have absolute speed control here, -1 on everything, and Tailwind to give us +2. That should allow us to dominate with Kyogre in future turns. So we do get our Tailwind up, and the double connect on Icy Wind is actually really big. The accuracy on that, just like Electro Web, can really throw your plans away. My opponent, let's see what they do. Go for an Electro Web from Regieleki. That's more or less expected. Triggers our Wakan Berry, and we get a miss on Gengar. That is fortunate, but it's not all that lucky, because honestly, we kind of want them to target Gengar with Zacian and get that free Kyogre switch in. Luckily for us, though, because of the Wakan Berry, we guarantee that Torn stays up, and the Behemoth Blade goes into Torn, so we're going to get that free switch in anyway, and Gengar gets to live with its Sash intact, so fantastic. Now, that Electro Web did do less than half, but if they had Magnet or Specs or something along those lines, we have a completely bulkless Tornadus, so that it's definitely in danger without its berry. So we get our free Kyogre switch in, and we are in a fantastic position at this point. We have Tailwind up and -1 on both of them. Absolutely pinned. Even if Alecki was Scarfed, we're at an effective +3, so we'd still outspeed. And if it was Sash, we popped that, so we're also golden there. Neither of my opponent's Pokemon have access to Wide Guard, so there's no danger in just going for the double spread move in Icy Wind and Water Spout that accounts for switches. And in fact, we do kind of expect to switch into Rillaboom and to protect. Didn't know what side the Rillaboom was switching in. If we did, we could have been a little more ballsy and gone for a Sludge Bomb. But Icy Wind's still super effective. It still comes off of Gengar's very powerful special attack stat, so it should do a nice little bit of chip into it. Alright, we hit into Zacian's Protect, which, you know, expected. Let's see how much chip we do into Rillaboom. And honestly, that's solid for a base 40 power non-stab. Yeah, pretty decent. And then Water Spout's going to chunk it even further. Rain, full health. I don't care that it's resisted. I don't care that they have AV. Maybe. That's still a ton of damage. And in fact, it looks like it might be a 2-hit KO after that Icy Wind damage, although it's going to be very close. My opponent now has pressure with a Rillaboom Grassy Glide, though, but I have Serena in the back for exactly this situation. They could read it and go for Wood Hammer, but I think they're just about in range of another Spout, and Zacian just protected, so unless they get a double, we're doing huge damage, even if Rillaboom just barely manages to hang on after the Water Spout. We're going to have to see if they take the bait, though. And they do. So Grassy Glide, stopped by Queenly Majesty, and this is why Serena is just universal on rain teams at this point. Yeah, and the double KO. So this is just a perfect turn for us. We're in a, 3-2 position now since they swapped out Alecki, and we've lost Tornadus. But all our Mons are healthy, and most notably, we still have a full health Kyogre up in Tailwind. Now, with that said, there is Regieleki in the back. So even though we are in this 3-2 position, you know, Tailwind was set on the very first turn of the battle, so that may be running out. Seeing Landorus is pretty nice, though. Let's see here. Yeah, we only have one turn of Tailwind, so this is why staggering your Tailwind by protecting Torn turn 1 can be very nice, but like I explained in turn 1, that'd be very risky if they doubled into Gengar. I consider swapping in Gengar here to outspeed Landorus after the obvious double protect, but Regieleki would just outspeed it with Web and make it slower than Landorus anyway. So instead we choose to just attack, even though the double protect is, you know, the most likely thing. If they don't, they're throwing, or they don't have it. It could be Scarf Alecki potentially, but nope, they go for the protect, so that confirms no choice item. And double, yeah. So as predicted, my opponent's making the correct play here. So now, unfortunately, that switch into Serena means that we don't really have any speed control. We could have potentially maybe protected and Icy Winded. I feel like they would have had to respect Kyogre and attack it. But it's still fine, though, because both of our Pokemon have a decent bit of bulk here. And we can kind of confirm from Regioleki's damage into Tornadus the first turn that it's not Magnet. So Kyogre with its bulk, yeah, it just barely holds on. And we really only needed one Pokemon to live here, right? Because with Scald, we take out Regieleki, and Gengar in the back can absolutely handle Landorus just because it has its Sash intact. Sludge Bomb comes out, and it does actually Oko Serena despite our little bit of bulk investment, so that means that the survive on Kyogre was quite lucky. If they had critted, if they were Magnet, we'd be in rough shape, but I felt safe making that play based on how little damage Tornadus took turn 1. And finally, Gengar comes in to clean up. Once again, we have this Sash intact, so we can absolutely murder them. If I didn't, then the Icy Wind might have been risky, and I may have wanted to go for a double Shadow Ball or something along those lines, but it's still fine. And actually, interestingly, I go for the Ice Beam on Kyogre, because honestly it doesn't matter at this point, but 4 times effective is not as strong as 2 times plus Mystic Water plus Rain plus Stab. So Scald is actually the stronger move here, but, you know, again, doesn't really matter. Rain runs out, and my opponent did stall with a Protect, but it's kind of just prolonging the inevitable at this point. And in fact, it's even better for us because Kyogre gets to recover a little bit of HP. Grass is gone, and we're just going to double in with the same moves again. This time they actually allow us to attack, so great. Icy Wind does connect, although it really doesn't matter because Kyogre has been shown to outspeed this Landorus. Yeah, the speed drop absolutely secures it, and Gengar picks up its first W. Let's move on to the next game, and good game to my opponent here. Okay, so for our next opponent, it appears to be a fairly standard Sun team, lacking the normal Cherrim support that tends to come on Series 10 Sun teams ever since Wolfie kind of popularized that. But it's still fairly standard, and it's great because we get to see some Weather Wars. So because of Groudon and the potential for double fake out here, Gengar's Icy Wind is once again more appealing than Regioleki's Electro Web to me. On top of this, they have a Grimmsnarl, so non-prankster taunt could be very useful. Once again, I pair Gengar with my Tornadus because they have their own, so Tailwind plus Icy Wind should grant us speed control should they attempt to match Tailwinds. Of course, we bring Kyogre in the back, that gives us control over the Weather Wars, although honestly, Tornadus Rain Dance is just as good as a Kyogre switch-in, and arguably even better, because you don't have to potentially sack damage into Kyogre. Finally, I bring Serena as my fourth to handle their Rillaboom, and plus between Power Whip and Triple Axle, Serena has great coverage into literally 2/3 of their team. So yeah, let's see what Marcus brings against us here. Looking snappy, just like me. And Zapdos Grimmsnarl, that really has some Series 9/7 flavor there. But yeah, very interesting lead. I suspect it's not going to be the same kind of like raw offense Zapdos. And this is pretty decent for us, right? Because Gengar is immune to Fake Out, and it can taunt that Grimmsnarl to stop it from doing any kind of prankster shenanigans. But because I'm not prankster, I'm not going to go before them, although it wouldn't matter because they'd be dark. Anyway, I'm scared about any kind of offensive priority move on the first turn, so I consider swapping in Serena to stop that, but Serena doesn't like fighting either of these two, particularly Zapdos, who can carry Hurricane and Heat Wave. So yeah, I end up choosing to protect Tornadus instead, and that'll allow us to just avoid a potential taunt, a potential I don't know, switcheroo, or just Fake Out, honestly. We don't have Sash, but any kind of chip hurts. And even though we have that Wakan Berry, not taking a hit from an electric move is pretty great. It turns out that their Grimmsnarl does go for a screen, though, so not sure if Taunt was really the best move. A Sludge Bomb might have been better, but that stops them from going for their other screen, and it means that even screens Grimmsnarls tend to carry at least one offensive prankster move, once again, considering the switch into Serena. But you know, because Zapdos might have shown its electric move that turn, but it's just as likely that it can attack with a fire move, or Hurricane if they predict a Kyogre switch in. But it looks like my opponent swaps in their Groudon, and that's really rough for us because the Sludge Bomb we chose with Gengar here, not gonna do a whole ton of damage, even with Groudon's mediocre special defense. Ground still resists it. We get our Tailwind up here, and you know, that's good because we could potentially go down from a double in if they had done that. We do get the poison off from Sludge Bomb too. That's really huge. And Heat Wave comes out, so really good thing that we didn't swap in Serena. The Sun swap in plus the Heat Wave was a really smart move on my opponent's part. It still hurts a lot, even though we didn't take the bait for Serena. So now I realize it's time to sack off Gengar here. Icy Wind will do super effective damage into both, and solidify speed control in case they swap in their Tornadus. So that ends up being the best bet. You know, Shadow Ball into either would have been fine too. Tornadus will protect in hopes that they just kill Gengar and give us a free switch into our Kyogre. And we get our Icy Wind off. That's some pretty decent chip. I know it's super effective, but they also have a light screen up, and once again, 40 base power, non-stab. Pretty solid for Gengar there. Even though the Thunderbolt goes into their Protect, they go for Precipice Blades, and that does connect into Gengar. And, you know, as much as I'd like to keep the star of the show around, in this case, it needs to go down. So very happy that that Precipice Blades actually connects because we'd be in a rough spot. And as the cherry on the cake, icing on the cake, we get to Cursed Body their Precipice Blades. So I'd say that's a pretty solid turn, and Gengar has set us up to bring in our Kyogre. Of course, we have the weather control now. So because Press with Blades is disabled, because we have speed control and we have Kyogre out, because we have weather control, we can almost guarantee that Groudon is going to switch out this turn. If they don't, then it's silly. I'd say even a protect on their part is pretty silly. Zapdos should protect, but they may trust their Light Screen and Zapdos' bulk to let them live a Spout. I'm pretty sure the Series 10 ones do tend to run very bulky. But remember that we have Tailwind up in addition to an Icy Wind, so just overkill on the speed control at this point. We don't know their fourth, but we know there's a good chance it's Rillaboom, so I decide to Hurricane into the Groudon slot after clicking Spout. They decide to swap in their Grimmsnarl instead, which is kind of interesting, but maybe they need to reserve their Rillaboom. Don't want it to take too much unnecessary damage. So Water Spout goes off, we get the KO on Zapdos, although that Grimmsnarl is remarkably specially bulky. The Light Screen actually allows it to survive both. Still, we do kill Zapdos, and I'd say we're well ahead at this point. My opponent probably thinks that they can guarantee weather control now, but they don't know about Tornadus' Rain Dance. But they actually bring out Entei, which means they don't have Rillaboom. It's very interesting you'd bring that in the Rain matchup. We don't know whether it's Scarf or AV, but that's irrelevant for now because we still have a bit of Tailwind left. There's basically two possibilities. They either swap in Groudon for weather control, or they use some pranks or shenanigans with their now untaunted Grimm. I, in particular, fear Thunder Wave. I can counter the first with pranks or Rain Dance, and the second with a swap into Serena. And if I get it right on the Rain Dance guess, I basically win. But I ended up choosing to go with Serena just because this covers the most bases. If they go for that T-Wave and I go last, or with a Scarf, or if I just get fully parried the same turn, that could be even worse for us. But unfortunately, we guessed wrong. They swap out their Grimmsnarl, so our Spout won't be doing nearly as much damage with Sun plus Light Screen up. So it's a very nice chunk. This goes to show how incredibly powerful Kyogre is. So we'll take that. Sacred Fire goes into Serena, so it doesn't really get to show its stuff this game. It actually just goes down immediately. It's still fine, though, because that allows Torn to come right back in to reset the weather while Grimmsnarl is nowhere to be seen. So we're now in a 2v3 situation, but our position is still very dominant just because of our board position, right? We do have to worry about speed control since Tailwind is gone, but resetting the weather and going for a Spout should still be just fine. Entei doesn't really have any real coverage into Kyogre, so I'm not really worried about being chipped down. I don't think they're going to do more than 50%, and the rain should save Tornadus from dying if they choose to go for a Sacred Fire here. Plus, if it has extreme speed for priority, then Tailwind won't matter, so we'll be spouting into Sun screens and lowered HP, and that wouldn't be great. They do end up swapping in Grimmsnarl, and Entei does go for that extreme speed, as predicted. So now, instead of a useless Tailwind, we have the Rain up again, and Kyogre is still over 50%, so this Spout is going to just score the double KO very easily here. And, finally Groudon can come out to reset the weather, but it doesn't matter. Of course, we can set it right back with Rain Dance, but more importantly, it has very low HP, and it's poisoned. We could even protect stall it out if we chose. With that said, I don't know if the poison luck was particularly important. I'd say no, honestly, because even if it had however many turns of poison damage it took, it would still die to a Spout with Rain Dance. And I go for Tailwind just to be safe in case it's some crazy fast spread, but they're generally not. Anyway, good game to my opponent, and let's get another game in. Okay, so last game we're doing for today. We get a very cool Sunroom team with Necrozma-Dawn wings, which very unusual. Including some Lilligant shenanigans in this Sunroom team. It seems like a prime game for Gengar with its fast taunt and immunity to fake out. So we'll definitely bring that. And once again, we're going to bring Tornadus as its partner. This isn't a catch-all lead, even though it seems like it for this video, but it is a very versatile one for us. We're doing this so we can bring Rain Dance to slow down Lilligant and depower Torkoal if they choose to go that route. We don't really have another immediate solution beyond Fake Out, and they have Psychic Terrain for that. In the back, we will once again bring our Restricted. We definitely want Kyogre, because it's just one more avenue of weather control, and the damage into literally everything not named Lilligant should be huge. And in fact, even that is pretty frail. And then finally, we bring Incineroar as our fourth. It just helps us against everything here that isn't Mienshao. Either whether Intimidate or Fake Out or resisting their coverage or what have you. Yeah, it took me a little longer than usual to put together a squad for this, just since it's kind of an unusual team for Series 10. But at the same time, you know, Sunroom has been a powerful archetype forever, so definitely cool to see a new form of it here. Okay, let's see what our our Joker opponent has. They're leading Lilligant. Okay, so this is what we were worried about. This is what we led for. So that's great. Basically, there's two ways this can go. Either they do the After You Eruption combo, which very powerful, allows Torkoal to go as fast as a Chlorophyll Mon, kind of crazy. The alternative is that they use Chlorophyll to deliver a quick sleep powder. We could swap Kyogre into the Gengar slot and Hurricane Lilligant, but if there's Sash, then that doesn't cover for that sleep powder play. Instead, we can do a much safer play by canceling the rain with our Rain Dance while we taunt Lilligant. This will stop future After Use, this will weaken Torkoal's Eruption, and it'll stop Sleep Powder as well. So even though this doesn't stand to score us as much damage as the Kyogre switch in, I still think it is the safest and most consistent play. So Rain Dance comes out. There's nothing my opponent could really do to stop that. And with that change in dynamic speed, we are able to taunt Lilligant, so turns out it went for After You. Okay, so the Kyogre switch-in still would have been the better play for sure, especially because Eruption does so much damage even in the rain. But this is still totally fine at this point. We have speed control and the weather control, so there's no real need for Icy Wind here. Instead, we can just attack. I look in the back, and I see that my opponent has immunities to both of Gengar's attacks in Stakataka and Indeedee, but Stack seems way more likely given my opponent hasn't shown a Trick Room setter yet, and you usually would bring that with Torkoal. So I'll go with the slightly weaker Shadow Ball. Plus, they've got Necrozma in the back, so if I caught that on the switch-in with a 4x move, that would be amazing. And of course, Hurricane into Lilligant is a no-brainer. And it reveals that it did have a Sash after all, so wouldn't have been the most amazing play. Although we do get this confusion, which is, you know, pretty nice. Shadow Ball goes into Stack, so once again, great that we chose to go with that move over Poison, which would have done nothing, and we get a nice little bit of chip into it. Lilligant gets hit by Confusion. We do get that proc, but I actually don't consider it super lucky because we now allow our opponent to switch into their restricted for free. I actually would have loved to have had a slow Lilligant with 1 HP sitting out. We could have done a variety of things to handle that. Instead, Necrozma-Dawn comes out. And this is rough because I can only taunt one Pokemon at a time, right? Both are potential setters. I consider going for the 4x Shadow Ball into Necrozma, but considering Prism Armor and its bulk, it's only a roll to Oko, I later found out. I decided to taunt the Stack and switch into Incineroar for Darkest Lariat. I figured that they'd want to attack with their Mon that has just more offensive capability. This is probably, this is kind of a risky move, to be honest. The damage would be way more guaranteed since we almost certainly outspeed the Necrozma as a Trick Room Mon. In fact, I'm pretty sure we just have higher base speed with Gengar anyway, but this is the play I made. Definitely turns out to be a mistake. Incineroar comes out and gets the Intimidate off, so that is very nice into Stakataka. Basically forces them to switch out of the Trick Room that they'd try to set. I got the taunt, and then it turns out that my opponent went with Trick Room off of Necrozma instead, so unlucky. But for whatever reason, they rage quit right after seeing the Incineroar. I guess it's fair since Stack is at -1 and Darkest Lariat would do big work, but if Darkest Lariat didn't pick up the kill, they would have just won. So goes to show, don't give up too early. Anyway, that's the last game for today. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. As always, the rental code is at the beginning of the video and in the description, where you can also find the paste. I intend to get at least a couple more videos out like this for Series 10, so, you know, keep an eye out for what I have in store. Until next time.